Welcome to the Grief Ladies, the practical guide to what comes next. I'm Kelly Daugherty.
And I'm Karyn Arnold, and we are two grief professionals with over 50 years of combined experience. We're here to validate, educate, and give you tangible tools you can actually use.
Each episode motivates you to take action and reminds you it's okay to want to feel better. This is the Grief Ladies, a guide to what comes next. Hello and welcome back. I'm Kelly and I'm here with Karyn, and we are excited to have our guest today, J. Moon Fields. And we are going to be talking about the next trail marker on our grief framework, which is E for evolving. So evolving kind of includes all of maybe the difficult emotions that grieving people may experience, like the guilt and the fear and the anger, and also about how grief can really impact our self-esteem and what that looks like. So we're excited to have Jay here today. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Kelly and Karyn. I'm thrilled to be here.
Thank you. And so let me just go ahead and read just a little bit about you for our listeners. So J. Moon Fields is a leading educator, coach, and author. Nearly 1 million people have taken her courses featured on LinkedIn Learning, and her book, Teaching People, Not Poses, is used by yoga teacher training programs globally. Her Hey, Wait framework teaches people how to honor their emotional experiences and share them authentically, helping them to break free from the cycles of overthinking, people-pleasing, and self-doubt. Wow. Over 1 million people. Wow, that's impressive.
I know, isn't it? Every time I read that too, I'm like, whoa, that's because it's a whole platform, not because it's my own newsletter list. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Pretty cool.
Well, welcome. We're so excited to have you here today and to be able to talk about some different topics. And so, Karyn, would you like to start us off?
Sure. Jay, I was hoping maybe you could just start it off by telling us, we've got your bio, but
Right.
a little bit more about you and the work that you're doing and what that looks like.
Yeah, so I'm a somatic coach, and people always ask what that means. I have the word, if I'm at a dinner party and then people are like, what do you do? I'm like, oh, don't ask me that. But somatic refers to the Greek word soma, which means body. So I help people leverage the intelligence of their body and their nervous system to work through the conditioning they got around what it means to be a good person, relationally, around what to do with difficult emotions. So I often will say I help people have a better experience of themselves around other people, because a lot of the people that I work with are people who grew up either, they usually don't know it, but with developmental trauma where they didn't get they had great loving parents, but they didn't get the emotional resonance or the validation of their emotions. And so they've become overthinkers and people pleasers and perfectionists. And they're very successful in the world, but there's internal sense of they don't have a good experience of themselves. They walk away from situations, they're like, oh, I just said yes and I wanted to say no. Or I can't believe I said that. Or, there's just a lot of the optics look good, but the inner experience is like, I just don't like how this feels. So I help them use their body to get out of the patterns that they have gotten into through thinking and through the nervous system saying, like, this is what's keeping you safe, so keep doing it.
Yeah. Well, I love the idea of the good experience of yourself. We think about experiences with other people, but meanwhile, we're walking around with ourselves every day,
Every day.
And I think people who have had significant loss may find themselves alone more often if they lost their spouse or partner. And so they're having to confront some of these. They may feel like they've lost some of that protection that they would have had from other people or that safety. So you're right, even in the best of times, when things are okay, we haven't had significant loss, this can still be something difficult. I work with a woman who I just think is so delightful, and she does not have the same experience of herself that I have of her. And that's things that, that she shares with me a lot, and some of the second guessing and some of the social anxiety and the questioning after interactions with people.
Oh,
It's so
right.
tough.
All the extra information and extra energy that's always on inside, that kind of like the inner dialogue is, like you said, your experience of her is, this is lovely, but it can be very, very different. And I appreciate you mentioning the loneliness factor of grief, because I think people who are used to being in those realms of people pleasing and kind of being disconnected from their insides in order to be what other people need them to be on the outside are already lonely.
Mm,
And then you add in the piece of feeling like um, really nobody understands my insides. Like they didn't before, and now I'm on another planet.
yeah. Yeah, that's so true. And I think there's something about a significant loss that just brings us back down to like our foundation almost, and we're kind of taking a look at the loss, of course, in terms of where to try to work through it and how to make that fit. But we are also looking at the other things, the other patterns, our other
Mhm.
relationships. And I find a lot of things get questioned, and a lot of people are trying to look at what works, what doesn't. As soon as you said people pleaser, I'm like, oh my gosh, I work with people pleasers all the time, perfectionists,
Yep.
people who have trust issues, a lot of things that have been there all along, but that just felt more manageable. To a degree. Maybe it wasn't something that they felt very happy about, but maybe they didn't feel like they could do anything. But I always say, while they're doing the hard work of grief, it's like, well, why don't I work on this too? Maybe there's something here.
That for sure, and also the sometimes the way I experience it is like, I am so tired from lifting and carrying this grief, I can't keep carrying this thing too. Like,
Yes.
something has to give. It's funny the way the universe works because the right before we met, I finished with a client who's my first time ever seeing this client, and I didn't know anything about her, and as she was telling me her story, she's 50 years old and she just lost her mom suddenly and tragically, unexpected. Her mom was her her person. Her mom was the
Mm,
person that she could trust, the person that she could confide in. And she said, I have a grief therapist. I'm working with someone for that. I'm reaching out to you because everything else isn't working anymore.
mm, yeah.
And
Yeah.
it makes me tear up to think about. Like it's like you could just see where she's like, and I understand you can't, like, divorce the grief from everything else, but she was like, "I have this place where I go and I talk about the relationship of losing my mom and the grief there." But what I've realized since losing her is there are all these other patterns that are showing up in my workaholism, that are showing up in the unhealthy relationship I have with my brother, that are showing up in the way that I can't get to sleep at night because my body won't turn off.
Mm,
Like, I just, like and, and I said something to her. I said, "I feel like you just met very recently when you lost your mom, you just met the part of you who won't tolerate the things that aren't working in your life anymore. And I don't think you know her very well, and I think you want to know her better." And
mm,
she teared up and she goes, "Yeah, that's it." So
yeah.
I see, I don't, as I said to you earlier, I don't work with a lot of people in grief, but the people who I do work with who are in, um, I would say, acute grief are the ones who are saying, like, um, I just can't hold together this persona any longer. And I know I don't have the skills to relate to myself in a healthy way or relate to other people in a healthy way. And I need that if I'm going to keep on getting up in the morning and doing this, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's really, really powerful. And, I think it speaks to the work that can be possible, as we're going through something like this. I've had people on the other side of their grief work say, I actually like this version of myself better now. Like
Mhm.
that version before seemed okay, but and they've even
Oh.
said the person they lost, like, I wish they could come back and see me. I wish I could show, that I think they would
Oh,
like this version. I mean, it's really kind of amazing to think that that's possible. But
yeah,
it's a lot, it just goes to show that you're right. We can't just put it in one place. The grief has a way of touching everything.
everything.
And
Yeah.
but so much comes up and comes out of
Yeah.
it.
If you've connected with our grief framework on the podcast, you'll find even more support inside our private, free Facebook community. Each week, we'll walk through grounding, rebuilding, interacting, evolving, and finding with prompts and practical tools you can use right away. It's a place to connect with others who are on their own trail through grief. Search the Grief Ladies community on Facebook and join us. Well, I would love to talk a little bit more about the somatic side of things
Yeah.
because grief is so physical. And I think every single one of my clients has some sort of TMJ or they clench or they grind their teeth. I know my dad died 10 months ago, and I have had more jaw pain in the last 10 months
Mhm.
than I have in years. And so it's
Yeah.
definitely showing up right here. Um,
Yeah.
and then I also see my clients with the stomach aches and the headaches, and they just internalize all of these emotions. And so how do
Mhm.
you work with that? What do you suggest or ideas for them to kind of be able to get this grief out because we need to?
Well, the first thing I would say is that grief isn't the first feeling a person hasn't felt. Typically, it's just maybe the biggest one that
Mm,
is suddenly so unavoidable. So if most of us who grew up in Western culture, maybe most of us isn't the right word. A lot of us didn't get taught how to be with feelings.
Mm,
The conditioning that we got was, you come home from school and you say, my best friend was mean to me today and she went off with another girl and left me. There's this big emotion. Oftentimes a very well-meaning, very loving parent will say, oh, well, we'll just go get some ice cream and it'll be better, or I'll call her mom and we'll figure out what's going on, or that's just life, you'll have other friends. What they don't do is say, oh, sweetie, I'm so sorry, that's really painful, and give the validation of course you feel that way. Your friend just was mean to you today. Of course you feel that way. We're not going to distract. We're not going to go eat something. We're not going to fix it. We're not going to make the other girl bad. Any of those things. So I'm sharing that with you, Kelly, because one of the first things I do with someone is just ask them, what is your history with emotions? What comes up? And the way I do it is not through like, tell me this whole history. I do a thing where I say, let's imagine you're 7 years old and something happened at school and it was really painful. Do you come home and tell your parents? And do you tell both of them? And do you tell them what happened and how you felt? Or do you just tell them what happened? And then what did they say back to you? And whatever they said back to you, I'll then say, I guarantee you now, when you have a feeling, that's exactly what you do.
mm,
You go get the ice cream, or you call the person, you try and fix it. But hardly any of us had someone just say, I'm so sorry. I understand how you feel that way. And that's where we have to start. So now what the feeling is, one of the tools that I give to a client, and this actually doesn't come from my work originally. I borrowed this from Sarah Payton, who is an incredible researcher and neuroscientist. And it's the two words, of course. And that is to say, of course I feel this way. Have you heard that
mm,
before?
mhm,
I love it. It's such good medicine. I watch it and I do it myself. I watch it in the clients I work with. If you can just say to yourself, of course I feel this way, it like softens the edges. It brings you back into your body a little bit and it gives you a place to start. It doesn't solve anything. It doesn't figure it out. It just makes you make sense to yourself. And that will help your brain calm down so that you can actually get back to your body. Because when you were saying, the TMJ and the stomach aches and all that, so much of that is your body saying, hey, pay attention to me. Because as you know, one of the things we do with big emotions, especially grief, is we think about them
mm,
and we don't actually feel them. It feels like you're feeling them because you're so tired, you're so drawn on. Um,
mhm,
But most of the time what we're doing is we're ruminating on it, we're thinking about it. So my goal when I work with a client is to like, let's just start to feel what it feels like to notice the sensations of your body. I have a smooth stone in my hand right now. Like, put something in your hand and rub it around, or just put your hands together and rub it around. Hear the sensation. Notice the temperature of your hands. Are they dry or are they clammy? Like, give them some contact with their body that isn't pain, that isn't emotion, that isn't feeling. It's just sensation, sound, maybe smell, so that they begin to get into their body in a way that it becomes a container for their experience that they are a part of, their grief is a part of, but it's not the whole thing.
Yeah, it's so important. And I got trained in something this past year called accelerated resolution therapy, and it's similar to other techniques I've been trained in. But the biggest component I think that I've seen the most helpful part is after every time we do some processing the memory or whatever, we go back to the body. What are you
Ugh,
noticing in your body? And then we do some bilateral stimulation to just stay focused on that. And to see the shifts that have happened, for me, that has been like just so helpful for them to like notice that, right? To notice that tension, that feeling in their throat that they can't say what they need to say, or that
yes.
the knot in the stomach, and just to get them
And to
to
see
notice
that it
that.
changes. I think that's the other
Exactly.
thing is that particularly emotions like grief feel so permanent. They feel so lodged.
Mhm.
And to come back to sensation in the body, it is always changing. And it is also then, because we feel emotions as sensations or vice versa, um, you get to really see how much is fluid, even if there is an underlying feeling that is like the feeling tone that's there. There's sadness, there's grief that there, but there's always this constant flux. And I think um research shows that the more embodied self-awareness you have, the more you can tell, am I sitting more on my left butt cheek or my right butt cheek, right? Am I, are my hands cold or are they warm? Can I feel my, where my clothing touches my skin? All those ways of just having a felt experience of yourself do help you to regulate your nervous system and regulate your emotions. So I always think of it as, and I think I said this already, like that you get to experience your body as this container as opposed to this thing that you're divorced from or disconnected from. And it grows trust because one of the things that is so important in grieving is creating a relationship of trust with yourself. And if you are disconnected from your body, you can't do that. And it's one of those things that seems um, like the animal in us, the part of us that's going for survival, feels like the more we're disconnected from our body, the better it's going to be for us. It feels like if I can just disconnect and be in my head, it'll be better. But all the research shows this is actually disconnecting you from all of the internal resources you have that help you to have resonance with yourself, that help you to have empathy and compassion in relationship with other people, that help you be able to regulate your emotions. So, um, yeah, no matter who I'm working with, no matter what they're dealing with, that is our primary, like, hey, let's get you in your body. Let's see if we can create a trustworthy relationship with yourself there.
Yeah. I think one of the things I've noticed is that people really do lose trust in themselves. I think there's so many
Mm.
changes that happen in grief, and that's one of the unexpected pieces. There's like, we have a significant loss. We understand that we're going to miss the person. We're going to feel that void in their absence, not being here. But I think people are often surprised that there's so many changes, the way that
Mm.
they lose interest in their day-to-day life, taking care of themselves. They don't feel as motivated, all the ways they would have described themselves before. And like you were saying with that people pleasing and some of the perfectionism, it does tend to create people who are really pretty successful and
Mhm.
managing pretty well, at work and in, some of their relationships and things like that. And people feel really far away from that person. We talk about comparisons and how we would think a lot of the comparisons are like me versus my friend or how my, sister is coping. But really, the worst comparisons are the ones we're making to myself now and who I was before this and who I used to be and what I
Yes.
used to be able to do.
Yes. Oh my gosh, so much. And I think that's where it comes back to um that of course, right? Like
Yeah.
giving yourself the grace that of course I'm not the same person anymore.
Right. Right.
And And it's not just going to form anew or come back like that just because you want it to. And so the what goes hand in hand with that grieving and feeling the loss of self is, can you learn to hang out in that place where you don't know who you are, but
Yeah.
you can, because not knowing who you are has so much to do with the stories we tell ourselves, the way we analyze situations. It has to do with the behaviors that you do. Like, I have a dear friend who lost her spouse tragically last year, and she used to go on walks every day. Like, we would call them walkie talkies. We would talk on the phone, and she hasn't gone on a walk in a year. And she was like, it's just so strange for me. And I feel like I should, and I want to go back. And so we talk a lot about, like, well, what's it like to offer yourself some empathy of, like, of course I don't want to go for a walk. You don't even have to know why, and you don't have to fix it, but just to hold all those pieces of your identity as, I don't know, and I'm not going to try and make anything happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it is a matter sometimes of having a little bit of patience, which is a lot to ask of a grieving person. Um, but that change in identity, role, I mean, so much of that has been changed and people feel so different. When I worked for hospice, we ran a program called Who Am I Now? That was the name of the program, because that's just such a big
Yeah.
question that people are always asking themselves. And it's not just, their relation to themselves, which is a huge part of it, but then also how they're interacting with people. And people will talk about, I like your of course idea because they'll be like, yeah, well, people are treating me differently now. And it's like, well,
Oh, of
as
course.
you said, of course, yes, you are different,
It
you
kinda
know.
works for everything. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. It does. Well, something else, Jay, that you had mentioned that I thought was really interesting as like something that people can return to is this idea of, hey, wait, when relating to
Yeah.
other people. So I wanted to learn a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so Hey Wait is this tool that you can use to, it's almost like calling a timeout.
Mm,
But for those of us who are people pleasers and don't like to be confrontational, it can be very gentle. It's like, "Hey, wait, I don't feel considered." Really, that's what it's about. And, I can tell you where it came from. Um, let me I think I have enough time because I think this will be helpful to hear. So
sure.
where this came from is an intervention that I learned from my therapist years ago. And essentially she's like, this is where your people pleasing came from, your inability to really like be a stand for yourself around other people. So she said, imagine there's a little girl 5 or 6 years old, and she's playing blocks in her room, and she's totally engrossed in her blocks. And mommy A comes in and she says, "Hey, we've got to take your grandma to the doctor right now." And she grabs her by the wrist and she pulls her, away from her blocks. And the little girl's, "I don't want to go." And the mommy says, "Too bad. We got to get your grandma." So scratch that. Imagine same scenario, little girl playing with her blocks, totally engrossed. Mommy B comes into the room. And mommy B says, "Oh my gosh, look at what you've done here. Look at this little town you've created. This is so cool. Is that where your horses go? Is that and she asks her about it and she goes, "I hate to do this, but we have to take grandma to the doctors right now." And the little girl goes, "I don't want to go." And the mom says, "Of course you don't. This looks so much more fun." See the of course in there,
Yeah.
right? Of course you don't want to go, but we have to. So in this scenario, I'll share this with a client and I'll say, "What's the difference between mommy A and mommy B?" And most of them, because they've been trained by mommy A's their whole life, will say, "Well, mommy A was a lot more efficient. She got, she got, this is time. Like, we got to get to the doctor's appointment." Um, and mommy B was kinder. Well, I'll say, here's the real difference. Mommy A didn't enter the little girl's room. Excuse me, didn't enter the little girl's world. It was all about her world. This is what
Mm,
we need. I'm not even going to look at what's happening for you. Mommy B entered her world. "Oh my gosh, look at what you've done here. This is amazing. Of course you don't want to go. This is so much more fun." So Mommy B is teaching the little person, you have your own reality. I have my own reality. Sometimes mine's going to have to win out because your grandma needs to be taken to the doctor. So here's where the hey, wait comes in. There's a third scenario in which mommy A comes into the room, says, we got to take your grandma, grabs the little girl by the wrist, starts to pull her, and the little girl says, hey, wait, look at what I've done here. It makes me tear up every time I think of this, because that is this little person saying, wait, I have a reality here too. I want you to be someone who can consider me. And the what I'll say to a client when I share the story in our first session is, the day that you stop being able to say, hey, wait, is the day that you started having shame for wanting someone to relate to your insides. So this comes back to our grieving people. If you have not ever believed that anybody would enter your world, because it didn't happen. Again, these are loving parents. They just didn't have, they're busy. Mommy A is more efficient, right? All these things. If you got conditioned that someone's not going to enter your world and your insides are a painful place now, you are going to either kind of retreat, withdraw, and say, well, I need to be with myself. I can't be around anyone else. Or you're going to go to their world, pretend like it's all okay. But that's the piece that breaks down in grief. You can't pretend like it's all okay anymore. Yeah. So the hey, wait tool is a way to start to say to someone, hey, wait. You get to say, hey, wait to people. You get to say, hey, wait, I know I said that I would come to the PTA meeting. I can't this week. Hey, wait, when you just said that, I felt like you glossed over my whole experience. Can I take an extra beat and tell you what's really going on? And for someone who has been a people pleaser and someone who has always entered other people's world, that's terrifying. It's terrifying. But
Yeah.
it's also solidifying is the word I want to say. Like, it gives you substance back, because you're used to being a vapor around other people. You're used to being chameleon, whatever they need you to be. And so, hey, wait is the way of saying, like, I get to be considered too. And you can say it to yourself. You can be going through your day and say, hey, wait, I actually haven't just taken a break to have some water and some food. I need that. Right?
Yeah.
Hey, wait, I've been really mean to myself in my own head. I need to go outside and breathe some fresh air and change a channel. It's an interrupter of old conditioning.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's amazing and really, really powerful. And in those types of terms, I had a therapist say to me that a lot of times if we imagine like the other people in our lives and spread your arms out as far as they'll go and imagine a room and a space, and the other people in our lives, they can take up as much space as they need with their thoughts, their problems, their emotions. They've got all the room. And then I'm going to just scrunch myself up over here in the corner, and I'm not going to bother anybody, and don't have to worry about me, and I'm not making any waves, and you're not going to be feeling my emotions or what's bothering me. And so I think it is kind of reminding people that there is space for you too, that there's gotta be,
There
especially
has
now.
to be,
Yeah.
especially now. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Are you ready to take the next step on your grief journey with real tools and compassionate guidance? The Grief Ladies are launching a brand new workshop series based on their signature grief G.R.I.E.F framework. 5 trail markers to help you find your footing after your loss: grounding, rebuilding, interacting, evolving, and finding. Each workshop focuses on one trail marker, guiding you through practical steps to move from surviving to living again, all in a space that's honest, supportive, and real. Led by grief experts Daugherty and Karyn Arnold, these workshops combine decades of experience with tools you can start using today. Visit griefladies.com to explore the upcoming workshops, because you don't have to climb this mountain alone.
Well, that's awesome. I love that. And so we're going to make a slight shift now. And we're going to go into the Celebrate Their Life segment. And so we spoke before we came on today a little bit about this segment. And so for those that are new to listening, this is really just to be able to help people shift their focus from what they've lost and to focusing on what they still have and how can they still stay connected to their loved one despite them being physically gone, and how can they celebrate and honor all of the good ways they impacted their life. And so I know you had a kitty cat that was really special, and would you mind sharing a little bit about that? Because I'm a
Yeah.
big fan of pet loss, and talking about pet loss, it's a bit of a disenfranchised grief, so we don't always accept it, and it tends to be minimized,
Yeah.
but it's really
No,
important.
I felt embarrassed when I said this was really the biggest loss I had because I've lost grandparents, I've lost aunts, great aunts and uncles, but nobody that I was terribly close to. In May, my cat, she was my cat for 19 years, and I often tell people she raised me. Like,
Aw.
I got her when I was 22 and going through a really hard time, and she and I just went on adventures together she was one of those cats that went hiking and went camping, and she was more like a dog. She went anywhere with me. As long as I was there, it was considered home, so she could, yeah, she wasn't like a typical cat, and, the when I met my current husband, I was his next door neighbor. And I say that May picked him before I did because she would just walk over to his house and, like, make her way. And I feel like, the way when I say she raised me, I feel like once he and I kind of got settled and we got engaged is when she died. And I really do feel
Mm.
like it was her way of saying, like, "You're good now.
You're in a good spot.
You're in a good spot. You've healed all your own trauma. Like, you're in a healthy relationship. I can go now." And she's buried right outside my office window here under the oak tree. And for the every day for the first 2 years that she was gone, I went and put flowers from the garden because she and I used to walk around in the yard every day. So, um, yeah, I did that for 2 years and just kind of let her know how I was doing and talk with her. But that's
I love
May.
that. That's a
Yeah.
great way to still honor her. And pets are amazing. They come into our life at the right time. I feel like when we need them, and they help us through so many difficult times and situations. They're always there, and I always say they're the best secret keepers and listeners,
Yep.
and and
Well,
they
and
love us unconditionally.
that's it. When she died, I remember talking to my therapist and I said, I'm gutted. Like, I remember the first night she was gone, I woke up in the middle of the night and I felt like panic that she was so far away. I couldn't express it.
Mhm.
And so I was telling this to my therapist and she said, "Look, Jay, the love of an animal is one of the most clean, unconditional loves there is. So it's a very particular kind of loss because it doesn't have a lot of static, it doesn't have a lot of threads. It's just really pure." And I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, that makes sense. That's why we can think, oh, it's embarrassing. This is just my cat or this is just my dog." But it's a different kind of love and connection that is kind of what every little kid wants in their life, that kind of love. And it was a really, really devastating loss at the time.
Sharing with us
Yeah.
about her.
Yeah. Well, something Kelly and I can both relate to. We've both lost pets, and it's also that proximity, just the day to day. They're such a part of your routine. And,
Yeah.
I think it's one of the, sort of easier ways to help people understand how some losses will feel more influential, than others, and not trying to rank some or minimize others. But the more your day to day is changed, impacted,
Intertwined.
yeah,
Yeah.
or feels different, the more impacted we're going to be. And
Yeah.
pets are everywhere, I mean,
Yes.
they go
Exactly.
where we go oftentimes.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, Jay, I mean, everything that you've talked about today has just been really so helpful. And there's a lot here. And as I think we had shared before, we always like to send people home with something that they can get started on right away. Just an idea, something, sort of simple, something that they can jump in with, add that will help them get to whatever that next step needs to be. And you had talked about the feeling and not thinking about feeling, which I think is a really interesting
Yeah.
concept. What do you think would be helpful to send people home with? What would you like them to start with today?
Well, I really would go back to the of course piece because I do
Okay.
think it is just so powerful for um, creating that extra little bit of space that you said, like you get to take up space. It also creates that extra little bit of pause that allows for um, uh, the I'm trying to say, like, it inoculates the need for patience in a way
Mm,
because there's just like it creates an extra space around the thing that feels like it's never going to go away. You just meet it and say, of course. But the other thing I would just add is for those of the people listening who feel like they're in their head, even before the grief, they're just a heady overthinker, is I would introduce some kind of embodied self-awareness piece. And I would start with something really simple like shaking,
mm,
shaking your arms or your legs, uh, because that doesn't require that you feel a lot. It doesn't require, to put your hands on your chest and take a deep breath. That can be really too confronting for someone, but to spend like any time that you end a part of your day, like if you're about to you've just come home from the grocery store and you're putting away groceries, that's a transition point. Give yourself a shake. If you are about to leave the house to go to the office, give yourself a shake. It's a little bit of a hey to your brain, hey wait, right, to your brain of like,
mm.
hey wait, you have a body too, and this is part of your resource, and you don't have to know anything else about nervous system regulation or anything yet just to be able to get your body underneath your head and support you as a whole person again. um, it will start to change all the ability uh, to process the emotion if you have awareness of the fact that you have a body as well as your head.
Yeah. Well,
I love that.
oh, yeah, go ahead. It's
I
good
love that
stuff.
because I do shaking all the time with my clients. So
It's
I'm always
so
in my
good.
office shaking with them. And, we'll listen to Taylor Swift or whatever the heck that
Right.
song is.
Lizzo's my yeah.
And
She gets me
we
shaking.
shake it out. And it's so simple, but can be so powerful and beneficial. And it's what happens with animals, right? Going back to our
Yeah.
animals, right? They get scared and then they shake it off. We don't know how to do that. And so being able to just do that after a long day, in between sessions for me.
Absolutely. I do it all the time as well. It's
Mhm.
such a great reset. And like you said, a, tr- a, a animal who's experienced trauma will do it. And that's how we get it out of our bodies. So we're animals. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great. That's great. Well, Jay, we are so appreciative of you being here today and all that you shared. If anybody wanted to learn a little bit more about you or get in touch with you, what would be the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, the most comprehensive way is right all there is my website, which is jmoonfields.com. So Jay Moonfields. And on there, I actually next week, so this is probably be out by the time uh, this airs, I have a book coming out called Less Lost. And it is an anthology of all these essays that I've written over the years of me, over 15 years of me becoming less lost. But each essay has a embodied practice or tool to use to help someone
Oh,
take
great.
the lessons into their life. So that would be the book Less Lost, and then my own podcast Hey Wait is a place where we talk about, like yours, hey, here are some tools that you can use as someone who might have always been used to entering other people's worlds. Here's how you come back to uh, having a good experience of yourself around other people.
That's
That's
awesome.
great. Yeah, that's great. Well, we'll definitely be checking out the book. I mean, I think one thing Kelly and I have enjoyed with the people we've had coming on, it's like we're learning so much, and we'll say after we're like, "Oh, we got to do this. We got to read this."
Yeah,
Like we
yeah,
need the help
totally.
too.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, Jay, it's been awesome. We really are just so glad that you came on. It was really nice getting to talk to you today. So, we really want to thank you. Thank you, Kelly. Thanks to everybody for being here, and we'll look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much for
Jay.
having me.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for joining us on The Grief Ladies.
Don't wait to feel better to get started. Getting started is what makes you feel better. Put this week's tool to work.
If today's episode helped, share it with someone who needs it and leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you.
And remember, we're here for you, your trusted grief ladies, navigating this path together.